Flight attendant's shocking remarks exposed how a black woman's courage cancelled a 1B deal. Tasha stood in the quiet terminal at the small-town airport, her heart pounding as she fumbled with her pre-flight checklist. She was just a flight attendant, navigating the skies to support her son, Malik, a sweet, bright-eyed boy who deserved the world. Little did Tasha know, the peace of her everyday life was soon to be shattered. The whispers she overheard from the executives in the back office would threaten not only her job but the lifeblood of her community. Tasha loved her job. The way the passengers smiled when she handed them their snacks, her voice warm as melted butter on fresh popcorn, was a joy she cherished. It was hard work, and the paycheck barely covered groceries, but each dollar felt like love wrapped in hard-won sweat. And every night, Malik's laughter filled their tiny home like a cozy blanket on a winter's night. She was a single mother living the American dream, or so she thought. One day, while making routine checks before her flight, she overheard a conversation that made her stomach drop. Safety standards. Costs too much, profits are dwindling, gentlemen. Let us make this deal happen, an executive sneered, his arrogance echoing off the stark office walls. Tasha's heart raced at every word. A chilling threat loomed over the very thing she valued most, safety. How could they put profits over lives? Questions of morality clawed at her heart, threatening to drown her spirit in doubt. Stay silent and protect Malik, or risk everything to fight for what's right. With each passing day, Tasha dug deeper, uncovering the stark truth. These corporate interests threatened not just safety, but the small businesses in her community, the very heart and soul of where she lived. They were poised to push aside the local cafes, the forgotten diners, and the family-owned boutiques that made her hometown vibrant. The anger crackled in her chest like a summer storm ready to burst, igniting a fire in Tasha that she never knew existed. Determined to make her voice heard, she organized a community meeting. The locals packed the diner, exchanging tales of dreams and struggles under the warm glow of flickering neon lights. Tasha saw fear etched on familiar faces, she felt their unease binding them together. But she also saw hope, vibrant and alive, ready to stand up against all odds. With trembling hands, she recorded a video, pouring her heart into words, imploring her community to stand with her. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. To her surprise, the video exploded, going viral in a matter of days. Tasha felt electricity surge through her as messages flooded in, solidarity born from shared values. They chanted with her now, voices rising like a river breaking free from the dam. She stood before the crowd, feeling butterflies flutter wildly in her stomach. Could she really carry this weight? The truth loomed like a rainstorm on a summer's day, swift, powerful, and washing away complacency. As Tasha prepared to speak, the gravity of her fight settled on her shoulders, and awe blazed in her eyes. Would her courage be enough to halt the billion-dollar deal? The answer danced on the horizon, spinning around the urgency of change, as the air buzzed with hope and anticipation. What lay ahead was bigger than herself. It was for Malik, for her community, for every single person who believed in the strength of doing what's right. Together, they were ready to make their stand. Tasha stepped into the spotlight, her heart racing as she faced the gathering of community members in the diner. Familiar faces turned toward her, some filled with uncertainty, others brimming with determination. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the reason she was there. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice trembling but resolute. "I know things seem daunting, but what we're up against is bigger than any of us. The executives are making choices that put profits over our safety, over our community." A murmur rippled through the crowd. People exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of fear and anger. Tasha's heart ached seeing the worry etched on their faces, yet she felt their strength too. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was about them, about the lives intertwined in this small town. As she shared her story, how she had discovered the truth lurking behind closed doors, hands shot up in the air with questions. Tasha saw the spark of defiance ignite. They were no longer passive listeners. They were ready to fight back, too. Every one of us has someone we care about on those flights. We can't stay silent. A young woman shouted from the back, her voice rising above the crowd. The room erupted in applause, and Tasha felt the adrenaline pulse through her veins. Her plan was taking root. They were all in this together. A man stood, fists clenched. If we can rally together, we can be heard. We won't let them bulldoze our businesses, our families. His passionate declaration sent waves of energy coursing through the air. Tasha nodded, fire igniting within her once more. They weren't just a group of worried citizens, they were a force. Yet doubts crept back in. What if the executives were too powerful? What if they ignored their voices and went ahead with their plans? She felt a momentary chill wash over her, but she pushed it aside. In that very room, hope was blooming. As the night wore on, they brainstormed strategies, created flyers, and planned protests. They'd take the fight online, harnessing the power of social media that had propelled Tasha's video to viral fame. Each suggestion ignited renewed passion, convincing Tasha that they could make a difference. Finally, they decided to rally outside the corporate office and gain media attention. It felt like it was happening fast, yet every decision brought a rush of possibility. Together, they stood on the brink of transformation, of doing something monumental. "I'm so proud of all of you," Tasha said, her voice echoing in the now charged diner, but just as triumph buzzed in her chest, her phone's screen lit up. An urgent text flashed before her eyes, an insider tip from one of her friends in the corporation. "They're planning to go public with a counter-statement next week. They will spin this whole thing to make you look bad. You need to prepare for backlash." A cold wave of fear washed over the room, stifling the cheers and applause. The room went silent, uncertainty creeping back in. Tasha's heart raced again, but this time, it was the fear of the unknown and the price of her fight. Would her voice be swallowed whole? The stakes were rising, and with that, so was the danger. Gripping the edge of the table, Tasha knew she had to act quickly. They had to get ahead of this news and prepare themselves. But, more importantly, they had to guard their spirits and resolve. "Listen," she began again, heart pounding in her chest, "we need to put our heads together right now. We can't back down now. We have to show them who we are." The intensity grew, the air thick with emotion, as the community braced for what lay ahead. Would they weather the storm, or would Tasha's courage be tested beyond breaking point? And as the clock ticked on, waiting felt like an enemy. Just how far would they go to protect their dreams and one another? The tension in the diner was palpable. The chatter slowly faded as Tasha scanned the crowd. Faces that moments ago resonated with hope now reflected fear again. She could see the uncertainty in their eyes. There was a flicker of panic. They were about to take a stand against a powerful system, and they could feel the weight of that choice. Together, she reminded them, "We are stronger than they think." With her heart pounding, she laid out a plan. "We need to gather our stories, voice our concerns, and let the world know who we are." Tasha felt the surge of unity as she spoke, but one question loomed large in her mind. How far were they willing to go? As they discussed their next steps, a woman named Sheila, typically quiet, stood up. "What if we share our personal experiences on social media? We need something to counter their big announcement," she urged, her voice shaking yet filled with determination. "That's brilliant!" Tasha exclaimed. The thought of ordinary people sharing their stories felt like a spark, something tangible that could reach beyond the confines of their small town. With pens and paper, they started jotting down ideas. Each note felt electric. There was a bustling energy now. People were sharing their lives, experiences that mattered. Tasha felt the weight lift, pushing fear aside as they forged ahead with purpose, but deep down, she knew they were racing against time. The clock was ticking, and each second dragged as the uncertainty grew. The reality of what it meant to stand up against an industry could cut deep. Were they prepared for the backlash? Would their personal stories be strong enough against the slick narrative of the corporation? Look, she said, trying to ground herself as much as her audience, what we're doing is bigger than just us. This is about integrity, safety, it's about family. A chorus of yeah. Let us do this. Filled the room, but Tasha felt her own heart thudding heavily against her chest. Later, as the group broke into smaller circles, Tasha found herself staring out the window, the bleak night sky offering little comfort. A sudden thought struck her. What if those executives turned nasty? There were rumors of intimidation tactics, and her stomach twisted at the thought. If they were targeted, could she handle the burden of their safety? Determined to push these doubts aside, she returned to the group, her face masked by a smile. We're going to show them what we stand for. We're going to hit social media hard. Then, as the room began to buzz with brainstorming, Tasha's phone chimed again. Another message from her insider. Meeting at corporate tomorrow with press present. Be ready for anything. Her pulse quickened. Tasha shared the news with the group, and they fell silent. The air thickened again, but she could also see the flame of resolve in more faces. This was their moment to seize. Tomorrow, we need to go live. Get those cameras on us. We'll tell our stories. We can't let them control the narrative. Tasha felt her own determination grow stronger, soaking in the collective energy of the room. As they rallied with newfound intensity, a thought crossed her mind. What if they were all in over their heads? People could lose their jobs, their lives, the stakes were climbing higher. But there was no turning back now. Tasha locked eyes with Sheila, who nodded with fierce determination. They needed to be brave. Deep breath in this fight mattered. And if they were going to jump headfirst, they needed to do it together, come what may. As they gathered their notes and made final preparations, Tasha's phone buzzed again. This time, it was another message, more ominous than the last. Don't say I didn't warn you. The anticipation hung thick in the air, tension taut, as they each processed the looming challenge ahead. She could feel her heart racing as she prepared for what could unfold. Would they be ready to face whatever came next? Tasha noticed everyone stealing their resolve. Tomorrow wasn't just a day, it was a reckoning. And she could feel the pulse of true courage humming through them all. What would it take to truly be heard? And at what cost? The sun rose the next day, casting a pale light through the diner's windows. Tasha stood outside, her breath fogging up the air, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The excitement that filled the diner last night had shifted into a mixture of dread and determination as they prepared to face the day. Inside, the group gathered, voices a low hum of anxiety and adrenaline. Their phones were buzzing with messages from supporters and skeptics alike, mingling with the scent of coffee and pancakes that had once brought them comfort. Tasha's fingers trembled slightly as she clutched her own phone, staring at the notifications piling up like unwanted reminders of the battle ahead. Sheila stepped up to her, her brow furrowed. Tasha, what if they turn the press against us? What if our stories are twisted? The fear in her voice mirrored Tasha's own thoughts. They both knew the stakes. It wasn't just reputations on the line, it was livelihoods and lives. We're going to speak from our hearts, Tasha replied, feeling the fire reigniting. They can't twist that. Our truth is powerful. Around them, heads nodded, though uncertainty lingered in the air. As they discussed the final details, Tasha couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching them, ready to strike. The message from the night before haunted her, like an echo of dread she couldn't shake off. The time came to gather at the town square, the heart of the community, where news crews were already setting up their cameras. Tasha's legs felt heavy as she walked, each step echoing the thud of her racing heart. Families were gathering, the crowd growing with anticipation, but with each new face, her anxiety bubbled up. What if the world saw them as crazy? What if they were risking everything for nothing? Once positioned in front of the crowd, Tasha took a deep breath, scanning the faces of her neighbors and friends. They were all there for a reason. Each one of them had faced challenges. Each one had stories that mattered. Together, we will share our truth, she said, her voice cutting through the growing noise. They won't silence us. Not today. The first story came from a local farmer who stood slightly behind Tasha, his face weathered but resolute. He spoke of how the corporation's practices had threatened his livelihood, his family's history. His voice cracked slightly, emotion pouring out, and the crowd leaned forward, captivated. One by one, voices rose. A teacher spoke about the impact on her students, a nurse shared her frustration over dangerous practices, and Sheila stood tall as she dissected her personal experience of fear, hope, and resilience. Tasha felt the energy shift, sparking off each individual's testimony, igniting a fire within the crowd. Then, the live cameras were pointed at them, soaking in their stories, exposing their raw hearts. Tasha felt the unity of those gathered, the power of their struggles mingling into a roaring wave of humanity. But as the crowd rallied, she caught a glimpse of a figure lurking at the edge, a familiar suited man from the corporate side, arms crossed tightly. His expression was unreadable, but she felt the coldness radiating from him. The moment sent a shiver down her spine, fear mingling with adrenaline. "Tasha, look!" Someone from the crowd shouted, pulling her back to focus. She turned to see the live feed highlighting her and Sheila's passionate commitment. Their faces, filled with hope and defiance, flashed on every screen across the state. Would the corporation retaliate? How far were they willing to go to stifle this movement? The reality of their actions loomed large. Tasha's heart throbbed painfully as she realized that they had stepped into unfamiliar territory, risking everything for the truth. Her gaze darted back to the suited figure, who had now begun moving closer, a determined look on his face. "Don't back down." Someone yelled, and the crowd cheered louder, the sound rising like a living thing. They were ready to stand together. But as Tasha locked eyes with the man, a familiar chill crept through her. Would they be able to handle the consequences of their courage? Just as she felt the surge of unity, the suited man took out his phone and pressed a button, a sinister smile creeping onto his face. What was coming next? The tension hung in the air, heavy and electric, as Tasha braced herself for what was about to unfold. Would they truly be able to hold their ground against this behemoth? Tasha's mind raced as she tried to piece together what was happening. The suited man seemed unfazed by the crowd's energy. Instead, he had this predatory focus, keyword keys clacking in response to something. She looked around, catching the faces of those stood beside her, all brimming with hope and an eagerness to fight. Then, a harsh voice broke through the clamor. "Folks, let us settle down a moment." The crowd hushed, turning to see a reporter, a sharp-looking man in a tailored suit striding forward, microphone in hand. His voice pitch rose over the gathering, a practiced charisma shining through. "I've just received word that this story has caught national attention." More murmurs spread like wildfire. Tasha squeezed Sheila's hand, feeling the pulse of her friend's fear mirroring her own. What had the suited man sent out? What kind of twist was he preparing to unveil? Without skipping a beat, the reporter continued, "And it's clear that someone on this ground is attempting to manipulate a narrative. Our sources are saying that a corporate giant is pushing back hard, they're looking to discredit these voices." He pointed toward Tasha and the others. Someone in the back shouted, "Lies." And the crowd erupted again, their anger and passion spilling into the air like flames. Tasha felt an unexpected surge of strength wash over her. It ignited a resolve she didn't know she had. No more hiding. Tasha yelled, her voice rising, cutting through the chaos. This is our time. They won't drown our voices with lies. We owe it to ourselves to tell the truth. The crowd echoed her sentiment, rallying louder, fists raised in solidarity, but the reporter didn't back down. "I understand your frustration, but the truth can be muddled. Are you prepared for what they might say?" He turned, nodding at the suited man, who smirked a bit wider now, his arms still crossed tight. Suddenly, a sound pierced the air, the whirring buzz of helicopter blades. Tasha squinted into the sky, and there it was, a news chopper hovering overhead, cameras likely zoomed in on the scene. The spotlight flicked on, carving their ordinary day into something far greater, but not everyone felt the thrill. Sheila looked at Tasha, anxiety etched on her features. What happens if they twist our stories? The question hung between them, heavy with despair. Let them try, Tasha replied fiercely, feeling her heart thumping loudly against her chest. Our truth is bigger than their lies. As she spoke, an idea sparked within her. With the cameras rolling, they could shift the narrative. They would not just be victims of corporate greed, they would flip the script and become the hero, rising against the odds. Listen up. Tasha called to the crowd again, her voice steady now. Let's tell them what we stand for. We owe it to our community, our children. Let us share our real stories so no one can drown out our truth. And just like that, voices rose one more time, joining in chorus. A collective memory surfaced, tales flooding out about losses, about dreams crushed under corporate policies, about children seizing futures, stories not of defeat, but of empowerment. But through her resolve, Tasha felt the suited man's eyes bore deep into her. The smile hadn't left his face. It hung there like a weight, a harbinger of threats that hadn't yet been named. If his smirk were any indication, he had something planned, something cruel and calculated. As the crowd continued to pour their hearts out, Tasha spotted him gesturing to the helicopter, his fingers moving deftly, and her gut twisted. Was he instigating something? What was he getting ready to unleash? The tension escalated, and Tasha felt an urgency to uncover the truth. It was now or never. Would they be able to withstand the pressure and fight their oppressor? Or was this the moment they would fracture under the weight of a ruthless scheme? Her heart raced in tumultuous anticipation as she prepared to face whatever was coming. But one thing was for sure, she would not be silenced. And as the crowd breathed fire into the air, Tasha knew one thing was certain: they were standing at the edge of something monumental. Would they make history today, or would it be another story of defeat? The answer hung in the air, like the helicopter overhead, waiting for the next move to unfold. The crowd's fire surged higher with every pulse of energy. Tasha felt her heart racing, echoing the beat of hope igniting all around her. They were caught in a storm of voices, every person adding a layer to the unfolding story. And just as hope filled her, the suited man leaned forward, his expression shifting subtly. It was not quite a smile anymore, it was something far more dangerous. Listen, he called out, his voice cutting through the thrumming atmosphere. This isn't a game. You don't know who you're up against. His tone was icy, threading a thread of fear that slithered through Tasha's stomach. One misstep, and you're not just losing a turf war, you're playing with fire. Tasha felt the vibration of fear ricochet off her chest, but she countered it with the strength of the crowd. Each story they shared was more than just words, it was a testament, a wall rising against the threat looming in front of them. She squeezed Sheila's hand tighter, feeling the blend of anxiety and excitement. They were on the verge of something critical. Don't let him intimidate you. She shouted, raising her voice. We have the truth on our side. The crowd responded with a cheer, feeling invigorated yet apprehensive. The chopper above them continued to swirl, its spotlight darting across the sea of faces. Now and then, it paused on Tasha, illuminating her passion, her determination, making her feel both vulnerable and powerful. She could almost feel the camera lenses trained on her, as if the world itself was watching her unfold. The suited man, noticing the momentum shift, straightened his posture. Tasha could see his hand inching toward a device at the side of his jacket. You think your stories matter? He boomed, sneering. This isn't a fairy tale, sweetheart. Your pain, your struggles, none of it will matter when I'm done with you. The challenge in his words thundered through the crowd, silencing them momentarily. But Tasha caught sight of Sheila's determined face, and it charged her with renewed vigor. The truth wasn't just a weapon, it was a shield, a rallying cry, and they were ready to embrace it. She grabbed the microphone from the reporter, who hesitated for a moment but ultimately relented, realizing that the moment was too crucial to miss. "Today, we are not subjects to be silenced," Tasha shouted into the blaring chaos, her voice firm. "We are voices of our community, warriors of our truth." The crowd erupted into support once again, hands raised in unison, voices amplified, a melody of defiance against the threat before them. Strangers became allies, and allies found strength in one another, weaving an unbreakable bond of hope, but the suited man wouldn't relent. "What's it going to be, Tasha? Keep pushing forward and watch as your lives get dragged through mud, or step back and think this through." The question hung in the air, thick with tension, and Tasha felt the gravity of his threat. Underneath the noise and chaos, a flicker of fear traced her spine, but it was overshadowed by a growing sense of purpose. If they faltered now, it could cost them everything. She needed to know just how far they were willing to go. For the people around her, for their voices not yet spoken. "Tell me," she challenged back, her heart hammering with every word. "Do we fight back? Are we ready to risk it all to claim our truth?" The crowd answered with a fervor so intense that Tasha could feel it vibrate through her bones. The space thrummed with shared conviction, a collective heartbeat driving them forward, onward to battle. Just then, a rush of wind swept into the square as the chopper hovered lower. With eyes darting from one side of the crowd to the other, Tasha saw the outfit of an unexpected ally, someone she had not anticipated arriving. Could this new presence turn the tide? Or would it deepen the divide? As the figure stepped forward into the light, Tasha's breath hitched in her throat. Would this stranger bring the clarity they needed, or could they be yet another buried truth waiting to be betrayed? The moment lingered, filled with uncertainty, the air thick with desperate hope. Behind the crowd's unity lay a flickering question: what would the arrival bring? And as Tasha prepared to face whatever came next, she steeled herself for the chance to make history or face the consequences of their fight. The crowd parted slightly, creating a pathway as the figure emerged. Tasha squinted, heart racing with anticipation. Could this person truly make a difference? The glow from the helicopter spotlight illuminated the newcomer, and gasps rippled through the audience like a wave. It was a woman, dressed smartly in a crisp suit. Tasha could see the calm determination etched onto her features as she moved confidently toward the suited man. There was something familiar about her, but the deluge of emotions washed over Tasha, making it hard to think clearly. "You!" Tasha cried out, recognition dawning as memories flooded back. "You're the flight attendant from the press conference." The woman nodded, her expressive eyes scanning the crowd. "Yes." The flight attendant's voice was steady, piercing through the tension like a knife. "I'm here because I can't stay silent any longer. My name is Laura, and I've seen the truth that needs to be told." The suited man rolled his eyes, a dismissive smirk curling his lips. Another voice from the chorus. What could you possibly add? But Laura stood her ground, undeterred. "What you label as story is our lives. It's real, and we want to let you hang it out to dry." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Tasha's heart swelled with a renewed sense of courage. Lara's presence felt like a lighthouse amid a stormy sea. Tasha caught Sheila's gaze again. This was bigger than any one of them. "Lara, tell us what happened," she encouraged, feeling the weight of the moment. "The world needs to hear." With a deep breath, Lara stepped closer, her firm voice capturing everyone's attention. "What happened on that flight isn't just a story of one woman overcoming adversity. It's about all of us standing up and demanding respect." She paused, allowing the weight of her words to sink in. They thought they could bury the truth. They thought silence was their weapon. But we have each other, and together, we are louder. The crowd cheered again, a wave of sound washing over them, a tide of solidarity and unbreakable spirit. Hope pulsed through Tasha's veins, but beneath it lay the trepidation, the knowledge that this confrontation could escalate rapidly. The suited man crossed his arms, his expression darkening. "You think your voices matter? You're just a gimmick to distract from reality. The real power lies with me." Lara took a step closer to him, unwavering. The real power lies with us. And we'll expose you for what you really are. The declaration sent a ripple through the crowd, the energy shifting to something raw and potent. Tasha felt her heart rise. This was it. They were standing on the edge of a seismic shift. She glanced around. Every face around her was lit with fervor, determination burning brighter than the helicopter's spotlight above. They were no longer just individuals, they had become a force. Suddenly, the suited man's hand moved fast, raising the device he had been concealing. Tasha's breath caught in her throat. Was it a weapon, or was he about to unleash something else? The tension was electrifying as voices rose in alarm. Stay back, he commanded, his voice carrying an edge of panic. But Lara stepped forward, fearless and fierce, her resolve cutting through the fear in the crowd. With the air thick with impending action, Tasha knew they stood on the brink. Would they remain united against the threat, or would the moment tear them apart? The stakes had never been so high, their truth never so powerful, and as moments hung in the balance, she felt a sharp question pull in her gut: what would happen when the real fight began? The air felt electric, charged with anticipation. Tasha's stomach twisted with unease as she focused on Lara and the suited man. Time seemed to stretch, each second fraught with uncertainty. When he pointed that device toward Lara, the atmosphere thickened, a potent mix of fear and defiance lingering in the crowd. Enough! The suited man barked. The threat in his voice seeped into the crowd, a chill that made some take a hesitant step back. But others stood firm, fists raised, hearts pounding with collective courage. Tasha felt a fire ignite within her. They could not back down now. Lara! She shouted again, helplessly wanting her to retreat from the menace. But Lara remained strong, her eyes locked onto the man's, unwavering. Your intimidation tactics won't work anymore. Lara's voice broke through the tension, echoing around the gathered people. We are more than your puppets. We are the voices you thought you could silence. With every word Lara spoke, Tasha felt her own resolve building. They had to stand together, to refuse to be bowed by fear. Lara took another step forward, almost daring him to unleash whatever threat he held. The crowd held its breath, as if waiting for a storm to break. You call this a power move, he sneered, but it's really just an act of desperation. You're grasping at straws. His voice dripped with condescension, trying to belittle the rising tide of support around Lara. Desperate? Lara's laughter rang out, crystalline and clear. No. This right here is liberation. The crowd erupted in cheers, the sound swelling like a tidal wave, drowning out the man's condescending words. We are standing here, on this ground, united. We've seen the damage you've done. Lara continued, her voice growing stronger. And it ends now. As she spoke, Tasha caught sight of Sheila's determined gaze, a reflection of her own internal fire. The crowd began to chant, a rhythmic surge propelling the energy higher. Stand together. Stand together. They bellowed, a powerful chorus that shattered the silence like glass, and then, just like that, the suited man's facade cracked for a mere moment. For a split second, he looked uncertain. But the power of unity held fast, and at that moment, every heart felt the same rhythm and undying belief that they were fighting for each other, that this fight was not in vain. Suddenly, he turned the device around, and Tasha's heart raced. Enough of this mockery. You think you can change anything? I'll show you what real power looks like. He pressed a button, but the crowd was already moving, pushing forward out of instinct. Lara's eyes glinted with a fierce resolve, and she shouted over the clamor, we won't be intimidated. This is our truth, our lives. And we are ready to fight for it. The suited man shifted nervously, the growing force of united voices unraveling his control. Tasha's pulse quickened. Whatever he had planned was losing its grip. She took a step forward, feeling a rush of adrenaline, ready to join the chorus that filled the air with an unmistakable power. Together. She shouted, feeling the strength of many behind her. We can't be silenced. But just as their collective voices reached a fever pitch, a blaring siren cut through the chaos, a stark warning that help had arrived, or perhaps another threat was emerging. Tasha's heart sank. What did this mean? As the lights of squad cars flooded the scene, illuminating the storm of emotions swirling around them, Tasha's fear returned, gnawing at her. Would the presence of the authorities help them, or push them further into the shadows? With the crowd in a frenzied state, Tasha's heart quickened. Would they find a way to harness this energy, or would it all slip away in the chaos? She held her breath, realizing they were at a crossroads. The fight had only just begun, but what would it take to truly unleash their power? The sirens blared like a warning shot across the growing sea of people, the harsh red and blue light slicing through the oppressive tension. Tasha's eyes darted towards the squad cars, their presence a stark reminder that this confrontation had gone beyond a simple act of defiance. It was now a public spectacle, open for scrutiny and potential violence. Lara stood firm, her chin raised defiantly as she faced the approaching officers. She was fiery, a beacon of hope against the towering figure of the suited man, who was now visibly sweating. Tasha could see his confidence shaking, cracks forming in his carefully cultivated armor. The crowd's energy swelled, feeding off Lara's spirit, and Tasha felt her own heart flutter with a sense of urgency. Hold your ground. Lara called out, her voice unwavering amidst the chaos. We are not the problem here. It's his threats and intimidation that have brought us to this point. Tasha glanced at the faces around her. Some looked frightened, uncertain if they would need to flee, while others had transformed into warriors, resolute and ready to take a stand. She squeezed Sheila's hand tightly, feeling the warmth and strength radiate between them. This was their moment, they had to push through the fear. The suited man shifted, his arrogance now mixed with irritation. He motioned towards the approaching police, desperation creeping into his voice. You wouldn't want to get involved in this, officers. He waved the device in a sideways motion, attempting to maintain control over the narrative that was slipping away from him, but Tasha could see it. His bluff was faltering. Unity was thriving in the crowd, filling the air with raw power. They were not just a group of individuals, they were a community bound by shared pain and a longing for justice, and they weren't backing down. Since when did standing up for our rights become a crime? One voice shouted from the crowd. It was a woman with fierce eyes, and her words resonated, creating a ripple of agreement as others echoed her sentiments. Tasha's breath caught in her throat. Would the police understand? Would they see that what was happening was not a riot, but an awakening? She could feel the tension hanging thick in the air. The officers arrived, and Tasha noticed that their faces were serious but curious. They seemed caught between their duty and the palpable energy emanating from the crowd. Tasha stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos once more. We're not here to incite violence. We want justice. Can you hear us? The officers exchanged glances, their expressions hard to read. One stepped forward, raising a hand to calm the crowd. What's happening here? He asked, his tone even but firm. The suited man seized the moment, his voice shrill. These people are a danger. They're causing a disruption. You need to disperse them. Is that true? The officer asked, scanning the crowd as murmurs echoed around him. Are you all causing trouble? The murmurs turned into shouts of passion. No. We're standing together. This is our time to speak. Whatever grip the suited man thought he had was fading. Tasha could feel the pull of possibility, a real chance for change. But then she noticed something in the officer's eyes, a flicker of understanding. Could they really be allies in this fight? As the crowd surged forward with newfound hope, Tasha's heart raced, beating in rhythm with their collective beat. What would happen next? Would the officers join their cause or side with the threat towering over them? The tension crackled in the air as the truth loomed just beneath the surface, waiting to be unveiled. But beyond the immediate chaos, Tasha sensed something more profound, a revelation that could change everything. With the crowd's chants growing louder, a phrase tumbled from Tasha's lips before she could stop herself. this is our moment. It was a simple statement, yet it hung heavy with meaning. What would this moment create or destroy? The answer hung in the balance, as did the fate of their struggle for justice. Would they find the strength to turn the tide or crumble under the weight of fear? The air around them surged. They were ready to step into the unknown, but Tasha couldn't shake the feeling that something unexpected was about to unfold. Tasha stood at the forefront, feeling the tension of the moment pulse through her veins. With each heartbeat, she could sense the resolve of her community growing stronger. It was now or never. The suited man shifted uneasily as the police officer assessed the situation. The energy of the crowd crackled like electricity, raw and vibrant, almost daring them to move forward together. "Thank you for stepping in, officer," Tasha said, her voice steady, echoing off the surrounding buildings. "We are standing up for our community. We want to be heard." The officer nodded slowly, his gaze sweeping the unified faces before him. "I see that. But you have to understand, if you all don't back down, this can escalate." A murmur circulated among the crowd. "We won't back down," someone shouted, followed by an uproar of voices in agreement. Tasha tilted her chin up, feeling her own determination spilling over. They were seeing her, not just as a flight attendant or a single mother, but as a lighthouse guiding people through the storm. "Look," she continued, grabbing the microphone once more. "We're not here to incite violence. We stand for safety, for the lives at risk in the skies above and for our community right here. We want a change where profits don't outweigh people." Lara stepped beside her, the light catching in her eyes. "It's not just about us, it's about future generations. We owe it to them to fight." The crowd reverberated with shouts, their voices swelling together, creating a powerful symphony of solidarity. The suited man's face paled, the reality of their strength hitting him like a gust of cold wind. "You think you're brave?" he yelled back. "You're just a bunch of nobodies playing dress up. You have no idea what's ahead. Watch us." Tasha shouted, feeling the pulse of power from the crowd surge behind her. They weren't just nobodies anymore, they were a collective force fueled by shared experiences, ready to rise and reclaim what was theirs. "Our voices matter. Together, we matter." The officers exchanged glances again, and Tasha saw the rigidity in their postures soften slightly. Could this be the turning point? Just then, a voice rang out from the back, a young man, his eyes bright with determination. "My sister was on a flight that almost crashed because of cutbacks. We won't allow this to keep happening." His words ignited a fire in the crowd. Each personal story had a purpose now, a push against the looming threat. "Do you hear that?" Tasha turned to the suited man, her heart racing. "People are risking everything to speak the truth. You thought you could silence us, but here we are, louder than ever." The suited man's facade cracked, frustration bursting forth. "You're making a mistake. You're just stirring chaos." But Tasha lifted her chin even higher. "No, we're stirring change." The officer stepped forward again, and the suited man shifted nervously. "What's it going to be?" Tasha pressed. "Will you stand with us, or against us?" Those words hung in the air, heavy with anticipation. The officer scanned the crowd, and in that moment, it was clear. He saw the desperation, the hope, the raw determination in their eyes. "We want peaceful protests, and it seems like you're aiming for that," he said, his voice calm but firm. "A united community has every right to voice its concerns." Cheers erupted, rising like a wave. Tasha felt the tears brim in her eyes. The power of truth had found its voice. The suited man, seeing the tide turn against him, seemed to shrink back. "What you're doing is pointless," he spat out, but his lack of conviction was palpable. "Is it?" Lara interjected boldly. "What's truly pointless is silencing ourselves for fear of intimidation. Your threats have no place against passionate voices that demand dignity." The crowd roared in support. "All right," the officer said, drawing his focus back to Tasha, Lara, and the crowd. If you're here peacefully, we'll support your message peacefully," shouted the suited man. "How can you support these liars?" But Tasha stepped forward, undeterred. "We're done being labeled as liars for speaking our truth," she stated firmly. "We will keep shining light on the safety concerns you've overlooked. We'll keep fighting for our community." A silence fell. Then another roar from the crowd, more powerful than before, echoed into the streets. "Hope. Safety. Together." As the cries reflected back, Tasha felt a profound sense of transformation wash over her. They were no longer just faces in a small-town diner. They had come together as a family, ready to weather whatever storm awaited them. The suited man briefly faltered, glancing back toward the corporate building, presumably calculating his options. But what could he do against the swelling tide of conviction that filled the air like the scent of fresh rain? The officer shook his head slowly, a glimpse of disbelief crossing his face as he began addressing the suited man. "You can't dismiss them any longer. The truth has a way of coming out. And we'll make sure it does," Tasha shouted, heart racing. The energy crackled, and she could almost see the walls of oppression falling away. Brick by brick, united in purpose, they stood ready, determined to take back their narrative, ready to fight, to raise their voices for every life intertwined in the stories of their community. This was the moment they would remember. As sunlight broke through the clouds, Tasha raised her voice one last time to the crowd, tears flowing freely now. "Let us show them just how loud we can be together." Tears of joy mixed with their defiance as the crowd erupted in unison, a chorus of strength echoing down the streets, shaking the very foundations of indifference. They were no longer afraid. Together, they were an unstoppable force, and at the center of it all stood Tasha, heart full, radiant smile brightening the day as she declared their truth to the world. This moment would change everything. Now that you've experienced Tasha's incredible journey, it's time to take action. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that matter. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support more amazing transformations like Tasha's. Comment below your thoughts about the ending. How did Tasha's bravery inspire you? And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can spread the fire of courage and hope.